Okay, so I put up a question on my YouTube members sort of community part, and one of the questions that I got was actually, why am I playing the Silver Sky so much when basically the K-Line sounds so superior? And I'd love to know some of your guys' thoughts on this, but I wanted to kind of just do a video exploring this, two S-type guitars. Neither of them have the right headstock, so fight out in the comments for which you think is uglier. I'd love to know who wins in that scenario. But yes, a K-Line Springfield with a lot of dirty blondes and a PRS Silver Sky John Mayer from about 2021.
This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
Now, they're both Nitro, but I think you might agree that the K-Line Nitro ends up coming off a little bit more authentic looking. I think the PRS Nitro is a little bit more plasticky and seems to me that it's going to age a little bit strange, perhaps, versus this, which I think ages as you'd expect. You can see on the back of the neck that it was a bit more of an anemic kind of colour to the PRS wood. I think that's maybe a lot down to whatever the colour of the tint is that they're using, but definitely the PRS, I'd say, has that more anemic kind of looking finish to it. In terms of tone, I guess that's maybe the first place that we should start with this sort of thing. I think the Lola Dirty Blondes in this are quite vintagey specs, so they're like 5k for the neck and middle, and then the bridge has slightly hotter, but it's still like maybe about 6k maybe. Very much voiced, I think, to be in that 50s Fender realm, whereas the PRS 635JMs, I think, are supposed to be sort of like mid to late 60s voiced, or maybe something like that, so a little bit hotter in general. And when I look on my interface, basically they come out at like about 5 dB hotter, and what that ends up translating as, I think this has more scooped mids, or a bit more of the bass and a bit more highs. These are a bit more mid-voiced and maybe a bit of a softer attack as well. Partly these might be down to Alnico 2 magnets in here, whether that makes a huge difference or not, I'm not sure. Alnico 5 in the John Mayer, but I think this is going to be a slightly more modern sounding instrument. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. And then the Springfield, a little bit more vintagey maybe, and I think that corresponds with the looks as well. I think this looks a little bit plasticky, and this looks basically how you'd expect. Now, one of the other key things we're talking about, like vintage elements, so this has a 10-inch radius, this actually has a 7.25-inch radius, and this is one of the things that I think a lot of people think is going to turn them off. But actually, for me, I find bending on the Silver Sky actually a lot more comfortable. If I try the same thing over here, the flatter radius and a slightly lower action, I think for me mean that I'm less likely to go for those sorts of bends, and equally sort of like vibrato is coming off a slight bit easier on the Silver Sky. Now this does also have 9.5 gauge strings on it, so that's making a difference too. Ultimately, I think for me right now, this guitar fluctuates between like summer and winter. The action is a little bit on the lower side than what I'd prefer, whereas the Silver Sky right now, just through luck and chance, I guess, is exactly where I'd want it. So slightly higher, maybe like a medium action you might call it. Not set up for shredding, I wouldn't say, but equally very nicely playing. I think the neck on the Silver Sky is a little bit on the thicker side. The K-line is, you know, a smidge slimmer, but both I think are fairly chunky necks. Not baseball bats, not like your Nocaster Telly, but definitely not slim or anything like that, so more on the chunky side. For me, what I quite liked about the idea of the Silver Sky was that it's a mass-manufactured instrument being made in America that has the specs that I would like, but crucially is not like a heavy guitar either. So this weighs about 7 pounds 2 ounces. My K-Line Springfield weighs about 7 pounds 7. One of the things that Chris at K-Line, I think, has continued to focus on as he continues making guitars is keeping those weights reasonable, whereas I think some of the other brands, like Fender, for example, the weights have crept up and up and up. Whether that matters for you or not is up to you, but it's one of the things for me in the Strat that I kind of look for things to be around that 7.5 pounds or under realm, just for, I don't know, just a random spec that I kind of like the idea of a slightly lighter Strat versus something that's nearing 8 pounds. I think you can tell a bit of a difference when you strap them on and standing with them for a gig. You know, something which feels lighter in some ways to me is better. It's really well made, I've found. This is a 2021 example. Another reason that I'm playing it quite a lot at the moment is because the frets are getting a little bit worn on the K-Line, given that it's sort of 10 years-ish old. And it's going to need some work at some point. And one of the things I wanted something that could maybe offset that a little bit, and something that I don't mind so much. Like if this needed a fret job, that would be fine. The K-Line needs a fret job. That to me has got a little bit of a, I don't really want to go and send this guitar out into the wild and not really know what's going to come back. That's gives me a little bit of the nerves. a fret job could go one or two ways, couldn't it? So that's one of the reasons, and this came up for £1,150. I thought it was a really reasonable price. So let me know in the comments, do you think either one stands above the other in terms of tone or looks or anything like that? How do you feel about the Silver Sky? I guess they're both basically Strat copies, right? I don't have an affiliation really with PRS. We talk a little bit. I got sent a Christmas card. I get to loan some gear, but I've never done any work for them, and never been paid for a video, and never been sent free gear, although they did say that I should give the Swamp Ash sandblasted one away to someone, but I'm not supposed to tell you that. Anyway, so there's that, and K-Line, I bought a bunch of these before actually getting any discounts from K-Line himself, Chris, but the yellow one and the blue one that I play all the time, I just bought used off of a forum. So that's basically the story in terms of affiliation or anything like that, or whether I'm biased towards either one. To be honest, I quite like the idea of playing the PRS, because I think people have like strong feelings about it. So it's quite interesting to me to read comments from people that really, really dislike them, because it's quite funny. But do I think it's necessarily super inferior or anything? Not really, to be honest. And there's things that I actually prefer about the Silver Sky. Ultimately, I think the tone of the Lola Dirty Blondes are more where I'm comfortable with, but it's not the biggest difference in the world to me. Ultimately, I think they both sound like a Strat. This has the 22nd fret, which is really useful for gigging. If you're playing Don't Stop Believing and Living on a Prayer, that can be handy. So that's nice too. But to me, they both sit nicely in the realm of Strats that are worth playing. So that's why I play them both. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Does that answer the question? Can you tell me which you prefer? I'd love to know your thoughts. And tell me what you hate most about the Silver Sky if you want. Cheers for stopping by.